So, you guys ready to see a panel from a guy that's not an expert with a pretty hastily put together PowerPoint?
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right, let's go. So, I am Zack Durazzo. I'm part of the convention crew here. Outside of this, I also run Brightforge Entertainment, which is what I'm here to talk to you guys today about. We've done a few things. We've done Phantom Legacy Con back in 2020. Unfortunately, the weekend before, Texas got shut down for COVID. So unfortunately, that con is no longer around, but I'm able to be a part of this today because of that. So I'm grateful for that. After that convention wasn't able to continue, that's the reason I bring it up. I kind of had to switch roles, switch careers, and figure out what else I was doing. So by trade and by education, I'm a mechanical engineer. And I decided to sit down and put those skills to use in other ways. And after the convention, I bought a Glowforge, laser cutting machine. I cannot tell you how awesome those things are. They are fantastic. Go get one if you can. I designed a acrylic case for Star Wars collectibles. It was a Black Series collectible case, and sold a whole bunch of those, and those sort of paid for the rest of the lab that I was able to put together. And that became another career for me. So as a crafter, painter, all sorts of stuff. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you guys about today. So I wish that I had had this panel when I was first getting started into that, because there are so many pitfalls when it comes to not just making a career out of crafting and making things, but when it comes to learning how to do that, because there's a lot of people in the community that like to gatekeep. A lot of people that want to make themselves unique, and they don't share their knowledge, they don't share their skills, and they want everyone else to kind of stumble into the same things that they did. And I don't want that. So one of the key things that we do at Brightforge is anybody that asks me how I do something, I tell them, I info dump. I tell them in as much detail as I can until they get tired of hearing me. So, Mother Dearest, everyone give her a round of applause as she stands up and comes over. More applause! Start passing these around, please. So I've got a couple things I want to show you guys. Just some of the materials as we talk about it. Just pass them around, feel them, and I'll sort of explain what they are here in a bit. I have a giveaway? Rad. Okay, fantastic. That's pretty rad. Okay. So, first things first. Do not neglect your PPE, your personal protective equipment. Before I was a mechanical engineer, I was a EMT. I cannot tell you how many people. Mom, go ahead and sit down. You're in the camera. It's okay. Before I was a mechanical engineer by trade, I was a EMT, and I cannot tell you how many people I've treated for resin burns or alcohol burns or any of these other things, any of these chemical burns that you can experience doing resin printing, face mounting, laser cutting, any of those things that you can hurt yourself with. Nitrile gloves, incredibly important. Do not get vinyl gloves, do not get sort of the surgical gloves, latex gloves, yes, sorry. Nitrile will not dissolve in resin, the others will. Nitrile is very important for crafting. They're a little bit more expensive, spring for it. The other big one is a respirator. Do not neglect your respirator. I sat there with DAP, which is a contact cement, and I did that for years. Without any personal protective equipment, and I have some medical issues because of that. Do not do what I did. Especially when it comes to resin printing, resin cleaning, alcohol, that resin, those are toxic fumes. They will hurt you. Use a respirator. Goggles. You know those videos of the guys that have the saw blades and they break mid-cut and you see the goggle with the blade stuck in it? I've had that happen. That's real. Wear your goggles. Okay, that's the scary part. Second part, be humble. You are not an expert. Nobody's an expert. Be a lifelong learner. I am not an expert. That was the first thing I said when I sat down, guys. I am always learning. You should also always be learning. Don't ever think that you're too good to learn from somebody. Even if you think you know everything that they're saying, listen, there is a tidbit in there that you have not thought of. Be humble. And finally, of the big three, be realistic about your expectations. You are not going to start printing. You are not going to start cutting. You are not going to start doing anything, painting anything, and be an expert right away. And I cannot tell you how many people have bounced off of this hobby, off of this career. I can't tell you how many people have bounced off of this because they thought that they would right off rip and they couldn't. Nobody can. Don't expect that of yourselves. Be kind. Be patient with yourself. And I'm going to show you guys, especially with painting, I'm going to show you guys some of my early stuff, and it is absolutely cringeworthy, and I can't wait for you guys to laugh at it. Do not fight your materials. There are so many people that I know that want to make, let's say, cosplay armor, that want to make helmets, that want to make statues, and they only know how to work in one material. And they try to fight that material up and down. Let's say you want to do cosplay armor, and all you have is the 3D printer that'll do PLA. That PLA is going to melt. That PLA is going to break. That PLA is not going to survive your first cosplay. Don't fight the material. Just learn the new material. Expand your horizons and work with the material in the way that it's meant to be worked with. You will save yourselves so much time, so much pain, so much effort. When it comes to acrylic, use the right kind of acrylic. There's cast acrylic and then there's extruded acrylic. They're good at different things. Learn what the material is meant to do. There's plywood, there's walnut. They're good at different things. I mean, plywood's cheap and really durable. Use it for what it's meant to be used for. Don't try to fight the material. Don't also be snooty about your materials. One of the best cosplay materials I've ever worked with, EVA foam. It's cheap, it's durable, it's easy to work with, and I see so many professional cosplayers snark at it. Don't be above something. If it works, it works. This is one that I had to learn later because when I was trying to not fight the material, I experienced some things that I just straight up couldn't figure out how to do. Pins and magnets were something that I was really passionate about. I've got so many pins at home. I've got backpacks full of them, covered in them. My fiance is also huge into that. She loves it, magnets, stuff like that. And with the materials that I had, I couldn't figure out how to make that work. I tried sublimating on acrylic. That did okay, and then laser cutting that out. Wasn't great. It was kind of terrible. So I ended up learning how to use face mount adhesive, which is something that they do in print shops. They take a very thin crystal clear adhesive, they put it on photo paper, and then attach that to back of acrylic, and they cut that. So learn things that are adjacent to your trade, learn things that are adjacent to your craft, incorporate them, learn things that have nothing to do with your craft, figure out how to apply them to your craft, and go from there. Miniature painting, people say that statue painting, miniature painting, cosplay painting, large-scale painting, those are all different. They're not different things. They're all very much so linked. It's the same techniques, just with bigger brushes. Learn from other people, apply that to what you do. This is a big one. This is the biggest thing that I wish, other than PBE, that I wish that I knew getting into this. Do not get the cheapest 3D printer on the market. Do not get the cheapest airbrush on the market. Do not get brushes and those craft packs from Walmart. Do not get terrible material from Wish. Get the right stuff the first time, especially when you're starting out. I understand that there's budget constraints. I understand all of those things, but you're going to waste so much more money fighting that material, fighting those terrible equipments, fighting those bad tools, those bad brushes. They're going to disintegrate. Just get the right stuff right off rip. The big one for me, I had an Ender 3. I know people swear by them. I hate them. They fall apart. I spent more downtime, more time tuning and fixing that machine than I spent actually with that thing printing. And then I got a big Bamboo Lab X1C. I see him in the back. He's like, yeah. It's amazing. I haven't had to tune it once. It's been printing for me for like 3 months straight. Just get the right equipment, get the right tools. You will thank yourselves later, especially if you're going to turn it into a business, if you're trying to. There's financing. There's all sorts of options for it. I understand it can be hard, but I promise you, you will spend more money trying to fight that than you will if you just got the right thing off the front. Y'all tired of hearing me talk yet?
No,
Thank God.
Talk about bamboos all day.
So could I. Read the goddamn instructions. You are not above this. Read the goddamn instructions. I thought I was above that. I got into resin printing, and I'm like, wow, I wish that there was a way to get all this crap from these failed prints, because I was a noob, off the bottom of the print vat. And there totally was. It's a button press that I didn't know about for a year and a half because I didn't read the goddamn instructions. And every time I had to fix that, it took me an hour of cleaning and scraping. I damaged so many films, so many printers. I've destroyed $600 printers over this because I didn't read the goddamn instructions. Read them. Read the instructions. I already covered this a little bit with equipment. Do y'all like the terrible PowerPoint yet? I tried to make this as terrible as I could. Splurge on your tools. You will thank yourself later. When you are on your 10th hour of trying to sand a Mandalorian helmet into crystal clarity, when you are trying to get through your 10th needle on your airbrush, when you are done with, I don't know, your 10th can of spray paint that keeps cracking on you, just get the right tools. They will save you time, and time is money, and time is also frustration. As a businessman, as somebody that's trying to make a living off of this, and who has been able to do that, thank God, you need to be realistic about your expectations. You need to be realistic about what you are doing, what you can make with it, and why you're doing it. If you're doing it as a hobby, you still need to pay attention to this. Because let's say you have one of these crystal dragons that everybody in the world with a 3D printer prints. Those are no longer worth making and selling. I made this for my fiance because I think they're cool. The print time involved in that, the material time involved in that, even if you don't factor in any work, it's just not worth it because you can't sell it for what you would need to make back that time. It gets even worse when you're dealing with something like, I used to do full painted statues, and I'll show you guys some pictures of those later. It would take me 10 hours to print one of those, and probably another 10, 12 hours to print. Now, obviously, you're not expecting to be paid full-time wages for your printer time. If you are, you're out of your damn mind. I know some people that are. If you are trying to make that money, give yourself X amount per hour, per printer hour, and then give yourself a much higher wage per hour, per work hour, if you're trying to make money with this. The reason I say that is I took a look at the numbers, and I was making $7 an hour with a trained skill that I've been practicing for years, less than minimum wage on these statues. So I had to stop doing them and trying to sell them. I still make statues for myself. I still paint miniatures. I still do all of that. I do large scale cosplays because the numbers are different on that. But if you're trying to make a business out of it, be realistic about what you are making and what you're trying to make. If you are making less than $20 an hour with a trained skill like this, you need to reevaluate things. There are so many people in the cosplay community, so many people in the business community, so many people in the convention community that undervalue their work, especially as the economy has changed. Don't undervalue your work. You're talented. You're skilled. You put in the effort. You put in the work. Make what you're worth. if you're not trying to make money with this, you should also do these calculations. If you're not trying to make money with this, do these calculations. Figure out what you're spending on your hobby. Figure out what you want to spend on your hobby, where you're spending your time on it. For example, Black Series put out a fantastic Mandalorian helmet that looks better than anything that I can make for $150. I can't make that for $150. If I'm trying to put together a Mandalorian costume, just go buy the helmet. Put your effort somewhere else. You're going to be spending that money anyways. Be kind to yourselves. I know some people will find that controversial. If you're really into cosplay and you really want to make your own thing, do it. I'm not going to stop you. More power to you. But if you're trying to do things in a timely manner, or if you're trying to struggle with getting a cosplay done for a convention, or if you have a lot of cosplays you want to do, take a look at those numbers. Figure out where you can spend your time and money more wisely. I started out in laser cutting. I had to think back. I'm very tired. I started out in laser cutting. And after I was able to monetize that and figure out where else I wanted to go, the first thing I looked into was 3D printing. So I got a filament printer. Then after I got into that, I figured out how to do resin printing. And after I figured out how to do that, I get into painting. And after I figured out how to do that, blah, 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 blah. The point is that there are so many different crafts, so many different skill sets, so many different machines, so many different things that you will benefit from learning, even if you never get one. Even if you never get one. Learn those things. They will help you in your original craft. And maybe you'll find something else you love. But I have also been given the advice of do what makes money, or do what's popular, or do what people will enjoy. Don't do that. You will hate yourself. You will find yourself so frustrated over a project that you will want to throw it at the wall and watch it explode. I've done that. It was because it was something I did not care about. It was something from a genre I knew nothing about. I had no connection to the character, no connection to any of those things that were involved in that project. I hated every second of it. I don't care if you're trying to make money with it. I don't care if you're trying to be a businessman. Expand into what you love only. If you're not into anime, don't do anime. If you're not into Star Wars, thank God. If you're not into Doctor Who, don't do Doctor Who stuff. If you're not into painting, don't paint. You don't have to learn these things, because there are people out there that are better than you and better than you ever will be at painting. Outsource. Bring in others to your team. Make friends. Make connections. Who here is a painter? Raise your hand. Who here is a 3D printer? Who here does filament printing? Who here does resin printing? Great. Y'all are now friends. Go work on a project together. Who here has a laser cutter? Who here has power tools? Who here has an airbrush? Make friends. They're everywhere. And working on a project with somebody else is so much more fun. Every night before bed. I am super ADHD. I'm bouncing off the walls ADHD. It's why I make these. I got to have something to fidget with. You should see my leg under here. It's bouncing. Every night before bed, I have to kind of wind myself down so I can actually sleep. You know what I do with my time? I put on a painting video. Sideshow, especially, does a phenomenal series. It seems to be relatively recent, of how they paint their stuff. Super fascinating to watch. I'll watch Slap Chop. I'll watch all these different painters. I'll watch printing videos. I'll watch game design videos. That's the other thing I'm into, is I design games, board games, video games, stuff like that. Video essays. Use your downtime instead of scrolling on Facebook. That has a place, usually in the bathroom. Doom scrolling has a place. Be a lifelong learner. If you want to get good at something, spend your downtime learning. If you really love the thing, you'll find it just as entertaining, hopefully more entertaining, than doom scrolling. Make that shift. Carve out a couple minutes a day to immerse yourself in that, to surround yourself with it, and you will find yourself getting so much better, so much faster than you ever thought possible. If you're an artist, who here is an artist? Like traditional 2D. How often a day do you find yourself doodling? That's the right answer. If you really love a thing, it's not work, right? You just enjoy doing it. If you don't just enjoy surrounding yourself with it, it's okay to give yourself permission to find something else. These images are getting progressively worse. Find ways to save yourselves effort. I've already talked about this a couple of times because I ramble. Find ways to save yourself effort. If you can buy a piece for your cosplay, if it's just as good as what you would make, buy it. If you can buy yourself a lighting puck for something that you want to light up and it's already made, buy it. If you can, do. If you can't, don't. If you can save yourself effort so that you can do the things that you love versus the things that you find tedious or frustrating, give yourself permission to do it. All right, this is where you guys get to laugh. Can you guys see my curve? You can't see the curve. Okay, so I used to play 40K before it got terrible. Obviously, I play Tyranids. Who here plays 40K or board games or anything like that? Miniature games? Okay, fantastic. So the guy there on the right was Tester's paint, spray paint, and a Walmart brush. Obviously, mucky, gooey, very little detail, kind of terrible. That was my first miniature that I ever painted. One in the middle was, I think, 5 years down the line, something like that. A little bit better. You can start to see some detail there. There's an effort, kind of, I guess. And then the one on the right, or the left, sorry, better, right? Like you can start to see some polish on it. There was some technique put into it. Those are 10 years apart. And that's still not even great. You know, I don't consider that a good paint job. Practice makes perfect, guys. Even if you don't see yourself improving, you're improving. Keep in mind that you're blind to your own progress a lot of the time. Keep in mind that you're blind to little improvements. I took these pictures intentionally so that I could see where I was getting to. I could see my benchmarks. Be patient. But seriously, keep it up. The one on the right is a Marvel Crisis Protocol figure. For those of you that paint, white is notoriously difficult. This guy took me 16 years, 14 years, something like that, to even attempt. Skin tones are notoriously difficult, stuff like that. Give yourselves time before you start taking on the difficult projects, but always try to push yourself. Always try to step one step beyond where you think you can accomplish, because even if you don't hit it, you're going to learn something. And then the next time you do it, you try to step a little further. My father had a saying when I was growing up. It was from this stupid little toy. Maybe some of you guys had it. It was like a steel ball, and it was two little things, and it was called Shoot for the Moon, right? Anyone have that as a kid growing up? Very good. And all along the sign it said, shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. And that is the corniest thing I think I've ever heard. It's terrible, but there's truth to it. Even if you miss, if you step outside your comfort zone, you will find something to learn. And then the next time you can step a little further. The two on the left were some of the things that I've done paint-wise. I keep talking about painting because I am colorblind. I am completely colorblind. I have to have my fiance help me figure out what colors to use. And I had to memorize the Citadel line of paints, what the shade values were, what the hue values were, where the steps were. You guys should see my paint rack. I should have put a picture of it in here. I had to build special racks so that I could see the step delineations along the paints. Painting is very special to me because I never thought that I could do it until my fiance kind of pushed me into it, and I started doing it for fun, and people started saying, oh, hey, that's actually pretty good. And then I started doing it a little bit more for fun, and then somebody said, oh, that's really good. And then I started doing it a little bit more for fun, and then somebody said, hey, can I buy that? And I said, huh? I said, I'm colorblind, right? That might be purple. And they went, I don't care. It looks really good. So those two things on the left, the Death Trooper, which is particularly special to me because I made that for my brother, the owner of the convention. You'll see him walking around. He has the Death Trooper tattooed on his leg, so I made that for him. He thought it was really awesome. So that was kind of a big step for me, was being able to give a gift of something that I thought was finally at a tolerable level. And the one on the left is the piece that I make that is our bestseller. That's our painted Ahsoka that I will never do another one because they are a pain in the butt. That headdress is awful to paint. But those are special to me because those were kind of my benchmarks for the first time that I felt as though I had succeeded. Keep going until you hit that, and then go further beyond, for those of you who are anime fans. Black screen. Any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms? This was either very informative or very boring. Yes?
So about buying good equipment, I got an Anycubic printer, probably not one of those good printers we talked about, but should I sell it to get one that can actually fit a helmet on it? Because right now I'm assembling a helmet and it's 5 pieces.
Anycubic resin, correct?
No, just Anycubic Cobra 2 Pro filament.
Okay.
Should I sell it? And I've had a good experience with Anycubic.
So that's a tough question. It's a tough question. Do you feel as though I have exactly one experience with Anycubic, and that was with one of the resin printers. And it came out of the factory and just pooped the bed all over my table. The resin vat was notoriously terrible, I found out later. I don't know about the filament printers. If you feel like you're being held back, if you feel like you could be doing better with another printer, do it.
Actually, as far as you talked a lot about investing in good equipment, I think that it's going to be next to impossible to assemble these pieces good. Like all the helmets that I've seen today and on Friday. Should I just sell it and put down the investment to get a larger printer that can do that in one piece?
So there are plenty of printers that I know, professional cosplayers, that print their helmets in 10, 15 pieces. And they look as good as they do because they thought outside that box and they looked into ways to make them look smooth and look professional. And they learned about Bondo. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard about it. I don't know how that works.
Come up and talk to me after. I'll show you. But you can absolutely make a multi-part helmet look good. I personally have only seen a couple of single-piece helmets look good. The reason for that is because the support material, very, very rough to get out, very, very rough to work with. I've done personally a few Mandalorian helmets, a few. I did Paz Vizsla, a couple of the big ones. Yeah. I did Heavy Mando for Tate Fletcher, who's here at the convention. It's a tough question because there aren't a lot of 3D printers that are big enough to do one of those helmets well. I would say try it. Because, I mean, it's what, $40 in filament? Give it a try. See how it goes. If nothing else, you'll learn Bondo. You'll learn how to do it. And if it doesn't work, invest in the bigger one. My suggestion, though, don't worry about size. Size doesn't matter. What matters is, she's laughing because I'm short. It's okay, she can't. She's my mom. Size doesn't matter. It's more about the quality of the print. So, for example, does your printer have auto leveling?
Yeah.
That's such an important thing. I really like the Bamboo Lab because it has the spaghetti detection. It has a really, really great auto level. I haven't had to level it once. It's got the different build plates that you can use so that you can decide what's really good. It's got a built-in camera, stuff like that. Those little conveniences that you think are really dumb and not worth it, they're totally worth it. Just do it. So I would say if you're not getting the quality of print that you're looking for, don't worry about the size. If you're not getting the quality of print you're looking for, switch it up.
Bamboo Lab is a 0.2 millimeter nozzle, right?
It's got a couple of different options, but yeah. And when it comes to cosplay, some people say use huge nozzles. Don't do that. Just take the extra time to do it right. Answer your question?
Mostly, yeah.
Any other questions? What's up? I love your beard, by the way.
Thank you. You mentioned not using PLA. Would you suggest PETG or ASA, or what would you suggest to do for cosplay parts?
Personally, I like ABS. I think it's more durable. It's more temperature resistant. There's a lot of things that it stands up to a lot better than PLA. PLA will eventually turn to dust. You can use PLA, especially if you UV resist it with different paints and stuff, especially if you Bondo or fiberglass or reinforce it in some way. It makes a great base. A lot of my helmets that I've done have been PLA. It's extremely easy to work with. It's a great first material. I still use it for most of my stuff. But if you're doing anything trooping, anything hardcore, anything where you're going to be outside, you want at least PETG.
Okay. And that sands just like, because I've only ever worked with PLA, so they sand just as well, or is it easy, or does it have issues?
So the reason I keep bringing up Bondo, I don't think any filament sands well. I think that when you're doing something with filament, you want to put a sandable material over it, like the Bondo, like some kind of primer. I also really, really like. I think it's Home Depot has a 2-in-1 sandable primer that goes on nice and thick, but it keeps the details, and that sands super duper well. That stuff is awesome. I've gone through probably 150 cans of that stuff. It's probably all on my lungs at this point. Don't worry about the sandability of the material. Worry about the sandability of what you're putting on that material. But yes, it sands very well. Any other questions?
So you mentioned using ASA. What do I do about the fumes?
Excellent question. I was actually supposed to talk about that earlier. Where is your printer right now?
It's in my room because the garage is pretty full with some stuff.
Okay. So there are enclosures that you can get that have built-in filters. They're like $60, $70 on Amazon. Well worth the investment on that, not just because of the filtering, but also because they temperature control your prints, which especially with anything that isn't PLA, that's super important because it'll warp off of the base print, the base plate, and just turn into a spaghetti monster. This guy back here is nodding like this has happened to him a million times. It's happened to me a million times too. Anything else? Yeah, go for it.
On your resin prints, I don't know if this is a me thing or not, but I'll do a multi-part print, and when I put the pieces together, they don't always sit flush. Am I just an idiot, or is that just part of resin printing?
Okay, so you can tell that Mr. Cad Bane over here, Mr. Bad Cane, isn't exactly perfectly fitted. That's intentionally on my part because a lot of people don't realize that my statues are multi-part and they go to pick them up and they explode. But that's a phenomenon called elephant's foot. I don't know if it's exactly called that in resin printing, but that's what it's called in PLA printing, stuff like that. Are you using clear resin or opaque?
I've tried it all. So I currently, in my printer now, I have clears, but I have tried black, gray, clear, blue, red, you name it.
Okay. So black, gray, and any of the translucents, they experience flashing. So that bottom part that's supposed to be the only thing that gets cured, because the light travels through that and because the heat travels through that with the black and gray, it will cure more than is intended, especially small pegs and stuff like that. The way that you combat that, and this is such a fine line, because the toggle that you use to combat that is also the toggle that you use to prevent things from falling off your build plate. So you have to find that line and ride that line to get things to fit perfectly. So you reduce your exposure time, and I've even seen some machines that will do a double expose. It's kind of strange. I don't like those, but I've seen that does help. For me personally, if it's a peg that you're worried about or specifically a fitting, every single one of my resin prints I hit back with a Dremel.
Okay, so you sand them down too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't like doing that. I've found that a higher quality resin, especially grays, I love working in grays when I'm not working in the translucents. Grays, I think, do the best. And I really like the Elegoo ABS-like. Super durable, very low quotient for getting elephant's foot, stuff like that. That'd be my recommendation if you have a problem.
Great.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
Elegoo ABS-like gray. Yeah, what's up?
So are there, I've 3D printed my first prop for this con, and I've used some like the clear Gorilla Glue in order to bind some of the small pieces together. Are there certain glues you would recommend staying away from because maybe they don't bond as well to certain materials, or I think I've heard some glues that even eat through certain materials? What's your recommendation on that?
I could do an entire 3-hour panel on glues. I have totes of different glues, hundreds of them. You are absolutely correct. There are glues that will eat through certain materials. There are glues that will produce a toxic mustard gas-like material with certain materials. I found that out a very fun way. There are glues that are really great for materials. There's glues that won't stick to materials at all. So what material were you trying to use? Was it PLA you said?
Yeah.
PLA, I either like to heat weld. Are you familiar with that process?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen anything on it.
So you can get those 3D printing pins and essentially use that as a glue material. PLA sticks to PLA. So that's probably one of the better ways to do it. Gorilla Super Glue works well. Not necessarily like the stuff that expands, because that'll screw up your prop. Where's the skull at? Not the resin skull, that one. Will you toss that to him? No, not that one, not that one. There you go. Yep. To him, so he can take a look at it. Thanks, sir. So if you look at the one that you're holding there, that came in 4 parts, and that glued together instantly and very securely with Loctite super glue, the stuff that's got the microcontrol grips, which those are a freaking godsend, by the way, for anyone that uses super glue. The ones with the little levers on the side so that you can control how much you're doing, those are amazing. Well worth the extra money. Do me a favor and just kind of drop that on the floor. Oh my God, no, I'm kidding. Yeah, there you go. Super glues in particular, CA glues work really well with PLA. You want to stick away from anything that's super goopy, because I don't know why it just doesn't do well. There's also certain solvents. I know the 501st is very familiar with the material that they use for their stormtrooper costumes. They'll create a slurry by dissolving some of that material in. I think it's paint thinner essentially, and then they use that as a glue. It's a glue made of its own material. Any other questions? Tired of hearing me talk yet? I didn't start singing. Is it going to be terrible? Go ahead.
As a mom,
Oh my God.
growing with this child, learning all this stuff and the crafting stuff everywhere in his room and all of that. Encourage him, let him stick with it, let him keep going, because then you grow an engineer. And it's hard as a parent, but he amazes me, so keep encouraging kids.
What she is referring to, and she's trying not to embarrass me, is when I was maybe 8 or 9, I went to my school library and I was given my first crafting book. It was little pom-pom animals and how to grow like a sunflower teepee for your backyard. And one in particular was like how to make figures out of used toilet paper rolls. It was like the dumbest thing ever, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I had a box of used toilet paper rolls, of spare paper bits, of just random crap, just absolute trash, because I didn't have any money of my own that I used for crafting. And by experimenting with that, playing with that trash, essentially, seeing what stuck together, seeing what I could fold together, seeing what I could glue together. That's how I learned material science, essentially. That's how I learned what glues work with what. I have a box of scraps and crap, failed prints, to this day, failed prints, resin bits, every material that I could possibly work with. And whenever a new glue comes out, I'm like, oh, new glue. And I go and I get a bottle of that new glue, and I sit there and I try to stick crap together. Sometimes it's really terrible. But sometimes you find out something that works really well. Any other questions?
You said to talk to you about the Bondo thing after.
Does anyone else want to hear about the Bondo thing? Okay. I can keep rambling. Okay, so Bondo is a car filler. It was originally meant to help repair dents, repair scratches in paint and stuff like that. There's a couple different versions of it. The one that I like to use is the all-in-one putty primer. Comes in like a rusty brown tube. And it's this paste that's gritty and nasty and gets everywhere, and you feel terrible after using it for days. But it's awesome. You literally just slather it all over your piece, whatever you're working on, whatever you want to make smooth. I usually do it after I use that spray primer, the 2-in-1 sandable. I usually use them in conjunction. And you start with a really low grit sandpaper. I usually go like 20, 30, 60. Sand it way down until you start to see that sandable primer underneath it. And then you just go up and up and up and up and up with the grits until you get to the point where you're at 1,000 or higher even sometimes, depending on what I'm working on. And you will get that crystal smooth surface. Sometimes I have to go through that process 3, 4, 5, 10, 25 times. That's an exaggeration, but you get the idea. Sometimes you have to go through that process multiple times, but you will end up with a material that is very smooth, ready for paint, looks really good. But most importantly, especially for multi-part prints, it will fill those cracks with a durable material that's paintable. It'll fill those cracks. It'll make it smooth. You will never know that it's a multi-part print. So I apply it out of the tube. Not everyone likes to do that. Sometimes I'm lazy, but that's one of those kindnesses. Remember, I talked about saving time where you can. I'm a buff dude, kind of, sort of. I like to pretend I am. I don't mind putting the extra effort into sanding that down. If you thin it, it is easier to sand. I've seen people thin it with all sorts of different stuff. I don't know much about the thinning process because I never got into it. I don't feel like it changes the overall outcome at all, except if you thin it, it's less resilient to scratching. So I find it's a little bit more durable if you don't thin it.
You said it's more durable if you don't thin it, right?
Correct.
Also, you'll never see layer lines again, right?
That's a tough question. If you do it enough on the same piece, yes, you will completely remove layer lines. That being said, can you pass this to him? Or actually, can you pass down the skull? That's even better. That is on the fastest setting at the coarsest layer height for the Bamboo Lab X1C. If you're seeing layer lines and you don't want to see layer lines, upgrade your printer or change the orientation of the print. It makes a huge difference. Any other questions? Tired of hearing me ask that yet? Roger? What's up?
So we're just getting started into this whole world. When you're sanding, and I'm just a real basic question, are you recommending doing a hand sanding or getting the power sanders, or what is recommended?
First off, did you make that costume? Go ahead and stand up. Let's show everyone. That's your first cosplay? No way. I do not believe it. You are a liar. Let's give him a better round of applause, guys. That looks awesome. What's that made out of? EVA. Fantastic material. Did you put a primer or anything over it, or just sand it down for where it was?
It's just the foam.
Okay.
So if we put primer on the foam,
It looks phenomenal. Better than my first attempt. My first cosplay was a set of armor that I made for myself out of... There was an ice cream place. I was in college. I was poor as dirt. I was in college, and there was an ice cream place that threw out their plastic tubs of ice cream. And I went and I dumpster dived, and I got those tubs of ice cream, and I cut out patterns, and I made myself plastic armor out of those. And I smelled like ice cream, and it was awesome. I still have that. I have it. I have the spine of that armor on my wall as a reminder that I once dumpster dived for materials. The reason I ask what the material is because the way that you sand it entirely depends on the material. If you're trying to sand EVA foam, I would recommend super high grit hand sanding because any power tools is going to destroy that, except for a Dremel. Dremels are amazing with EVA foam. You just got to put it on either a really high setting or a really low setting, depending on what you're trying to do, and just be real gentle with it. What else were you trying to sand?
we haven't tried anything yet. Just trying to kind of figure out what's the next step. And so I know that some of the manual recommend doing the thick, the sun,
Corrugated plastic?
yeah, that they were like, maybe use that to, try next steps, or, just kind of try to learn a little bit.
Yeah.
We've been looking at a 3D printer, so we're trying to figure out where the next round is going to come from for them.
So you've already skipped a couple of my steps, but from there, EVA, you can do a lot more than you think you can with EVA. There are plenty of people that never leave EVA behind. Real quick, time check. Looking at you, buddy. Thank you. there are plenty of people, especially professional cosplayers. Kamui Cosplay is one of my favorites. I've learned a ton from watching her videos. People that never leave EVA foam behind. If you want a next step, if you're looking for more hard material, stuff like that, especially like Star Wars themed armor, I recommend 3D printing. FDM printing specifically, you don't want to try and mess with resin. Resin can get very brittle on costuming. I really, really like the Bamboo Lab because there's very little that's as frustrating as having your first couple of prints fail. It's miserable, especially when they're 10, 20, 30-hour prints like they are with armor. But compare the cost between a Bamboo Lab and a full set of armor. And, you know, the other 83 sets of armor that you're inevitably going to make with it. Sanding PLA, which is the main material that you use in beginning, especially 3D printing, perfectly fine for conventions for the most part. Just try not to spend too much time outside in it. Sandable primer, the spray, Bondo on top of that. Very high grit power sander for your first couple of passes, and then don't kill your hands with the paper, the sandpaper. Invest in the sponges. They're so much better. Of course.
And just to add to the whole bamboo thing, the thing that I love about it is they have what they call the bamboo wiki. It has every question you could ever think of in regards of like, how does this work? Oh, this thing broke. How do I fix it? They have guides and videos straight from bamboo about all of it.
It is as close as press a button and prints as you're ever gonna find so far.
Could not agree more. It was life-changing when I got one. It was so life-changing that I got rid of my 10 other printers and started getting more bamboo printers. I think that's about my time. I am going to be kind of outside if anyone else has any more questions, wants to have a more personal conversation. I believe I have some giveaways I need to do. Come on up, big guy. One Mandalore to another.
Thank you.
Let's give him a round of applause. That is an awesome first cosplay. Where did my prints end up? Hold them up.
Is this a Rancor skull?
Yes, it is. Cool. Take them home. Thank you, guys.